All right, now God and the internet willing, we're recording this. So let me start again real quickly. My background goes back to 1966 with just an absolute passion for the culinary arts, gastronomy, wine, and it was actually an interest in wine when I was 14 years old in 1966 that spurred my interest in cooking and gastronomy and so on. So what I'm going to present to you today is very disruptive in terms of what most of us have been taught. It's been very disruptive for me also. My grounding is in classic books like Larousse Gastronomique and studying escoffier, serving apprenticeships in pastry and sauces, becoming an executive chef with a very classical tilt on things in French cuisine, then later in Chinese and all sorts of different cuisines. So what I'm going to present today is very disruptive in terms of what's in the books, how we all operate in this idea of wine and food. And but I guarantee you, every bit of it is not just some sort of random thought or new BS to replace the old BS. It's a very carefully researched program looking at interactions and history and traditions and kind of seeing if there's a way we can move forward with wine and food that has less argument and less divisiveness, that at the end of the day helps consumers a lot more. Hey, Jessica's here. Come on in, Jessica. We're just getting underway. She's going to be all verklempt because she's been driving over the Cascade Mountains. I live in beautiful Bend, Oregon. And there we are. Hi. Come on in. Everybody, this is Jessica.
Hello. Is anybody here?
Yeah, we got about a dozen people or so online. Hey. And we're recording this and trying a new setup here. You like it?
I do like it. I just drove about 3.5 hours, so I'm here. Who's with us?
Well, here's our list of participants. So we got Bill, Tina, Gloria, Jane, Kathy, Dennis B, Chris Cook. That's our group.
Okay, and I'll take pictures here. So should I put my bag right over here?
Yeah, make yourself at home. Mi casa es su casa.
Okay.
I cooked you lunch.
Oh, thank you.
Now, this is actually the first time Jessica and I have met face to face. So we've done stuff with on social media. And Jessica, tell just really briefly a little bit about your background and kind of things you do. So.
Okay, where am I looking? This way?
Yeah. So stand over here.
Stand over here. I'm Jessica Lewis. I have been teaching at the University of Oregon for about 6.5 years, and I left and started my own business. I was teaching wine marketing in Italy, and I took the largest group in the history of the University of Oregon to Italy for wine marketing in Siena, Italy. So right now I'm planning on teaching in some of the wine zones, teaching wine marketing and social media marketing as a business.
There we go. Awesome. And we're going to play today. All right, let me move this just.
I'll take pictures too.
And she's going to take pictures. And then I'm going to have, here's the challenge of all this. In 1989, I'm a chef, I'm a wine, I've been in wine retail. I moved out to the Napa Valley and joined the Behringer organization in 1988. In 1989, I was accepted and went to London to sit the Master of Wine examination. I was one of the most epic fails in the history of the exam. And I signed up to go to a writing course, but signed up for the wrong one and ended up in a course on disruptive innovation, critical thinking, and positive change for electrical engineers. So I went through the 3-day course and it literally just blew my mind and just got my mind reeling with things. You get two experts together, same bottle of wine, same moment, same environment, And one expert opinion is this wine's commercially unacceptable, and the other is that this is the greatest wine they've ever had. And you sit down with two people with the same exact wine and food pairing, forget about it on social media or the internet. Everybody just argues and it's just total chaos, right? So 30 years ago, I started to work with scientists around the world. I started to relook at the history and the traditions. My very early research, you've all heard of the term umami, but I actually am the one who forwarded that concept and the sciences into the wine and food conversation, into Western culture, basically. And I was given all sorts of crap for that. But now we understand it, and I'm actually going to do a little demo with Jessica to really help people understand what umami is and what it isn't, okay? I don't take this stuff lightly. Everything I do is absolutely subject to change and revision anytime we find better historical or classical evidence. Anytime we meet new scientists or find new scientific research. This is a dynamic program, but it's really taking a look and critically rethinking all the stuff that really gets in the way of us just having conversations about wine, helping people find what they love, kind of getting out of our own head and our own personal opinions to pay more attention to consumers, to have a better understanding of history and tradition and those kind of things, okay? And so for anybody just joining us, there's a chat function if you would like to communicate with me that way. I'm absolutely delighted. Oops, yeah, I wanted to make that smaller. Or you can unmute your microphone. Anybody that does have background noise or traffic or barking dogs or screaming spouses or kids, if you could keep on mute, that would be great. And we'll just sort of cover things, okay? And now for a quick presentation. Now I'm just gonna go through this quickly because I really want to kind of dive in. We hope to wrap this up by 1 o'clock, so in about 50 minutes, all right. So what we're gonna talk about is genetics. And genetics determine what we all perceive. If you're colorblind, you can't see certain things because genetically you're missing certain receptors. And what you perceive and the intensity that you perceive it is determined by your genetics, okay? The differences from one person to the next are enormous. And not knowing this, there are these crazy arguments over nothing because we don't know about sensory genetics and because a lot of what we think we know about perception and science is muddled up and a mess, which we'll get to real shortly, okay? We talk about, as your palate becomes more sophisticated and your palate matures and all these kind of things. Fundamentally, your palate's not changing much. Now, again, this is a topic that there's a lot of research and there's a lot of different opinions, but for the most part, your palate's not changing that much unless there's a pharmacological thing or you're pregnant or you have trauma or neurological damage. So the changes in time actually are neurological. It's a matter of neural plasticity. And the importance of knowing this is genetically, your palate is going to be pretty much the same from the time you're 4 years old till very late in life. And some people lose ability of sensations. More often, we're actually neurologically adapting to sensations and changing how we process that information. But also later in life, a lot of people gain sensitivity. So again, we're trying to avoid the generalizations and really understand the phenomenon much better. But this idea that your palate changes over time, yes, to a minority of people, and usually not in the way we think. The changes are neurological, okay? The other thing we're going to talk about is the total misrepresentation of wine and history in wine and food matching from a traditional standpoint. We're making it all up. We've got crazy things like Americans like sweet wines because they drank Coca-Cola. Well, I'm sorry, champagne in France used to be 30% sweeter than Coca-Cola. And that's how the French wanted it. And it was okay to put cassis liqueur into your wine, put a cube of sugar. French always loved sweet wines. And French wine consumption, a very complex, again, subject, but is down 85% over the past 52 years. Wine is rapidly becoming not part of the culture of both France and Italy and Spain, okay? So we're going to talk about the misrepresentation of history and traditions and how to actually learn more about it so we can have more fun with wine and food. And then the other thing is we get into why. Oh, the steak it's a heavy food. It goes with this wine because you have heavy with heavy, and the fat. None of that happens. It's all a bunch of metaphors, and yeah, we're going to have a test on that. Okay. All right. And then a lot of people say, well, if we do this, this new approach, sorry about typo there, it's really about opportunity. I mean, it's just incredible when you learn about these genetic and neurological and this approach. It opens up opportunities for sommeliers to have unbelievable new conversations with customers, to personalize selections. If you're in retail, if you're a blogger, it's all about actually new ways to connect with the market, make the market bigger and healthier and more vibrant, and trust wine experts more, because wine market does not trust wine experts for the most part. And it's really good for us all. It just helps with the health of the industry. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover. This is the end of it. Can I help you find a wine you'll love? And that people say, yeah, I love Moscato. What can you do for me? Oh, let me use my expertise to lead you to other wines that I'm really confident that you'll love and want to come back to me for more. And this goes, for me, every consumer, whether they're drinking Moscato, White Zinfandel, Sangria, Peach Merlot, whatever it is, they are wine drinkers. And if you look in the history of wine was, the national drink of Spain is Sangria, not Tempranillo, okay? And there's a reason for that. And that's what they drink mostly with their food as well. It wasn't just some sort of special party favor. All right, so anyways, this is what we're trying to do. I assert, and I have some of the greatest chefs in the world that I've trained on this, that when you hit a certain balance of salt and acidity countered against umami and sweetness, food becomes more delicious and wine becomes delicious. The amount of salt, the amount of acidity needs to be on a personal basis. Some people love lots more, some people don't like much. And we'll talk about that, and also in some of the misrepresentations about salt and that. And what it opens up is a possibility here. I've prepared this beautiful steak tonight. Oh, you love Riesling? I've got a great Riesling for you here. Try this one. Oh, you love a Pinot Noir, a Cabernet, a Barbaresco, whatever, you name it. And that'll actually be a much more delicious experience and engender trust by going from that approach, okay? All right, so first variable factor, every one of us has perceptive capacities, meaning what we perceive, what colors, what smells, what sounds, tastes, etc., and at what intensity, and these dictate at a personal level how we experience wine and food and stereos, and you name it. The second set of factors, and this is where people like Jamie Good, who doesn't know squat about my work, says, oh, well, but there's all of this stuff. We know that. life experiences, your culture, your learning, your peers, all influence the context and how we process sensory information and what it means, okay? So we look at specific genetic SNPs. There's a cluster called OR6A2. If you've got it, cilantro is horrible, it's disgusting. And the tiniest speck in food just can ruin the whole experience. I see over and over, oh, I didn't like it, I learned to like it, you know, as your pal. No, Julia Child hated it. The slightest bit of cilantro in a dish for Julia Child rendered it inedible, okay? So we just need to understand that. There's lots of arguments over alcohol levels. Some people seem to love these really high alcohol, more the better, lots of tannin, this and that. Well, there's actually different genetic variations on how people perceive alcohol. For one group of people, it's just sweet. And they're very tolerant of the bitterness and the tannin, and it's great with their food, and it can be 16, 17% alcohol, and they're, what are you complaining about? Another group of people are in the middle. They can adapt to higher levels of alcohol much more easily. And then the third group is, it's an incredible burn, and it's exacerbated by bitterness and astringency. And you can see this in wine experts and in these arguments and so on and so forth. So these are the kind of things that we're looking at with the scientists that I work with. And it's really, really fun. Let's see here.
I'm videoing you and posting these on my Twitter page, so they can also look at 1 or 2 minute snippets on my
great.
page later.
We'll have 1 or 2 minute snippets and so on. So here's just one of the things that's known. The range of number of taste buds from one person to another ranges from 500 taste buds to over 11,000 in another person. The number of receptors on each taste bud varies. The type of receptors varies. The pathways and the intensity of the signal of stimulation. So this is just really important, I think, for everybody to understand if you want to be a wine professional. And there's ways you can determine this from people that you talk to or in your life or that you taste wine with. Anybody interested in this, go to myphenotype.com. And what we're doing is we're looking for certain markers that are indicators of different sensitivities. Anybody on this call loves salt? I mean, you get a hard time from other people because you love it so much? Okay, so Andrea does. Andrea, can I unmute you for just a second?
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so what are your favorite kind of wines? What are you passionate about?
I love really acidic white wine.
Got it. Do you love Sauvignon Blanc and sparkling wines particularly?
Oh yes.
Okay, cool. So this is just random. This is a very high correlation that I can't give you all the background on, but any possibility you were or are a pickle juice drinker?
Funnily enough, no.
Okay, got it.
I should, but no.
Yeah, you could. And we have a son who's a pickle juice drinker, and when he discovered the cap comes off a salt shaker. By the way, your preference from salt indicates a really, really high sensitivity to bitterness, a high likelihood you have to cut tags out of your clothes or buy tagless clothes. You're really picky about sheets and pillowcases, likely to have rescue pets, and all sorts of other behaviors that are just associated with that one thing.
Are you watching me?
Were any of those not true?
No.
Now I can help you find wines that are going to rock your world. And when you come to my house, we'll have a conversation about all sorts of different things and how I can make you really feel welcome and like I really care about, you know, serving you and helping you as an expert. Okay?
Cool.
So that's what we do. It's a blast. and you can read more about it. Okay. So what we've done is we can arrange the wines of the world from sweeter to less sweet to almost sort of sweet to drier, fruity and light, to more oak, higher alcohol, and then to red wines from lighter and fruity, this and that. And then we can have conversations with people to what kind of wines you love, just like I had with Andrea. And the output is, wow, how did you know that about me? And I'm only guessing that Andrea would like to hear more, maybe. And it's just so cool. So what we've got is a new system, and it's based on your sensitivity, your culture, learning and experiences over time. That equals you. And so that's what our work is centering on, and that's the first variable in wine and food that we look at. Okay, so the other thing is a lot of the pseudoscience of wine comes from having an experience, ascribing a rationale or explaining why the experience was that experience, and basing it on total BS. So my life for many, many years, beyond the 30 years, has been systematically saying, okay, what's going on? And 30 years ago, when I was talking to scientists, that's when I discovered there was something called umami, and that it's really important in what happens with wine and food. And just so you'll know, umami is a primary taste. We're going to get into that. I'm going to have Jessica as my guinea pig on this. And when you have lots of umami in food, it's very desirable, all right? But like sweetness in food, it will make wine more bitter, more sour, more astringent, less fruity, and less attractive. Okay. Somebody's got, let's see, let me see if I can mute here. Okay, Jordan, I just muted you, thanks. All right, so here's how it works, all right? One of the things is you may try certain combinations and you say, oh, this wine goes with or doesn't go with that, but it might not be the meat. It might not be the sauce per se. So over the past 30 years, it's been a matter of just breaking things down into their fundamental parts. Now, is everybody familiar with the idea of most of what you taste is really what you smell? All right? It's not. This is one of the most fundamentally ridiculous premises and totally ignorant of sensory sciences. Taste and smell are completely independent sensory systems that are interdependent, but if you actually cannot perceive something with your nose closed, it's not a taste. Come on over here, young lady.
Okay, thank you.
You can do this as a selfie. All right, and you all can try this at home later. And actually, hang on, let me put this, oops, that's not what I wanted. This is what I wanted. Here we go. Okay, so here we are again. So Jessica, what do we have here in these little holes?
This looks like cinnamon.
Okay.
This looks like something like cumin, or is it cumin?
I don't know. We're just
taste it?
No, not yet. They're just brown powders of varying colors.
And spices. So they look kind of like cumin or different
Those
spices
kind of
that we do in
things.
this sort of things.
All right, so here's how we're going to do this. Try if run and go get some things to do this. We're going to have you hold your nose, wet your finger, and take a little bit and put it in your mouth and keep your nose closed. Any taste? Let your nose go.
Yes.
Okay.
Very cinnamony.
If it's a primary taste, you can perceive it without your nose, all right? And cinnamon, fundamentally, you can feel it, but does not have a taste. There is no taste, there is a smell, okay? And why this is important is because as professionals and in writing papers, learning blind tasting, we start with a behind the cue ball because we're already starting with bad sensory information about how our systems work. So the next thing we're going to do, so if I were to ask you, what does this remind you of?
That reminds me of Christmas.
Christmas.
Cookies.
So seasons, cultural. If you lived in a culture without Christmas, would it remind you of Christmas?
It would probably remind me of something in some sort of dish. So
In
if
something.
you were in the Middle East, or if you
Well,
were in a different country, it would be some sort of Middle Eastern food. Or
so when I do this in Istanbul, there was a question on the threads, well, different cultures. I get different cultures. I do this all around the world. When I do this in Istanbul and in Turkey, and the participants, what do you think of? The number one answer is lamb.
mm-hmm.
But in our culture, we wouldn't make that association, okay? So now do it again in powder number 2. Same thing, and let go.
I think that's cumin.
Yes.
Okay.
Now what's really neat is you visually could identify them.
Which is a surprise.
So this is how the interrelated, independent but interrelated. And here's actually a factoid. When you have a cold, you're a better taster. You just can't smell. But you actually pay more attention to primary taste. So if you define taster as actual taste, and then we define flavor as what you see, what you smell, what you taste, and then any context or psychological prompts and whatever. So flavor comprises potentially 2 or all of our senses, and a taste, a smell, and touch are separate independent sensory systems. All right, and those are simple because they're just one in this, and we think of cumin, and that if you go to England and you talk about which one's the cumin, they don't know because they call it coriander.
Okay.
All right. So again, a different cultural thing. Now, taste the next one.
This is some sort of Indian spice from India.
So it's really complex. So
Really
it's hard to pick out.
Mm-hmm.
So complexity is simply a group of smells, and aroma is a single individual.
It's almost like a 5-spice mix or something like that.
Right. Yep, and this is actually a curry powder and curry blend, which could be done in hundreds of different ways. Yeah. Now, we're going to hold your nose and do it one more time, and then I'll quit subjecting you to this horrible thing. Now, always hold your nose for a bit, but are you noticing a bunch of things going on in your mouth?
Yes.
Okay, because this has taste, and then you can let it go.
Well,
And that's Lowry's spicy seasoned
yes,
salt. So you're
very
getting the
spicy.
burn, you're getting all these kind
and I
of
was
things.
almost getting that while my nose was.
Right. Yeah. And so again, taste, salty, sour, bitter, umami, sweet. And modern science has it that there's thousands of tastes. They fall into 5 primary buckets, but there are dozens of different receptors for sweet and different ways people interpret bitter and salty. So, okay. So that's demo number 1. And when you get different people, you'll get all sorts of different reactions of what happened. Is it good? Is it bad? What does it remind you of, etc. Now, one of the things that's going on in WSET, Master of Wine, all around the world is this forced methodology and descriptive lexicon for wines that needs to stop. It just needs to stop. We've all got our different systems. We've got our sensitivities, our way of doing things, and we're not nurturing learning about tasting wines and technically assessing them and so on in a way that is fitting for all people.
Master of Wine, San Francisco Wine Academy.
What? I'm sorry? Peter, did you have a question?
Как се зове? Live обяснява concept for the wine pairing.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
A użyłek, a los,
Well, maybe if you can write it in the chat, that might be easier because we don't have a lot of time, so I've got to go through this. I apologize. He's speaking to someone else. Let me mute. Okay, got it. All right. So what about the touch feeling? Of course you can perceive touch. As a matter of fact, you got a little hot burning.
Mm-hmm.
Hot, spicy burning is not a taste. There may be tastes associated with it, especially if it's like Tabasco or a fermented kind of a chili sauce and whatever. But the actual burning is a chemically induced irritation of your touch sensors on something called your trigeminal nerve system. And different people perceive it vastly differently at different intensities. And I saw you getting a pretty strong little bite from it. And this is how crazy it is. If you don't get a lot of hot spicy and you love Cabernet, you can have highly spiced foods in Cabernet and there's no problem. As a matter of fact, you'll love it. There's something really cool that we learned about hot spicy or that tactile burn, chemosensory burn. Some people, anybody here, just you carry your own hot sauce or you know somebody that carries their own hot sauce? What actually happens is when the intensity of the burn is high enough, people fundamentally have similar to an orgasm. Their brain reacts to the burn and releases endorphins and dopamine and adrenaline, and it really hurts so good. And it's like runner's high, and there's other ways that this kind of phenomenon is triggered. So one of the other things that we've learned when recommending wine, somebody says, oh, you know what, I'm having this spicy Indian cuisine or Thai cuisine. And by the way, the chilies in those cuisines did not come from those worlds. Hunan chilies, Sichuan, Thai, all those came from the New World. So they're actually fusion cuisine and very modern. But anyways, the conversation you need to have with somebody is just not patently recommending something that'll put the fire out because you're stopping their orgasm. Why would you do that? You might even recommend a wine and say, oh, if you really love the burn, I'm going to recommend this wine to you and just try it and we'll have a good basis for our next conversation and see where it takes you. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean anybody, that's no prescription for how to recommend anything for anyone else. And we've just got to get that. Let me see what else we got. The touch is as interrelated. Everything's interrelated. What you see, what you hear, what you smell, all of this is interrelated, and the neurological functions. So the question, I don't know if touch is as interrelated. It is. Astringency in wine is not a taste. It is a touch phenomenon. So it's actually the loss of lubricity in the oral cavity is kind of the technical explanation of astringency. And again, people, that and bitterness are very interrelated, and bitterness is a taste, astringency is a touch. And texture of food, the tactile, whether things are slimy or this or that. Some people just can't handle certain foods just because of touch. So it's very important, and we all know mouthfeel in wine is a very, very important thing. And I'll do a quick demo of mouthfeel and kind of how that works. Come on over here, young lady.
Okay, sir.
And I'm going to give you a spit cup if you like.
All right.
This is MSG. You don't die from it, right?
Right, I don't think so.
And nobody does, and there's so much misunderstanding. This is simply glutamate and sodium, so it's salt and a sodium salt of glutamate. And we're gonna put a little bit in a glass. Now, here's the problem with umami. There's not a simple form you can add because this is gonna be salty and umami, but take a little sip and spit it into the glass. And so do you sort of get that mouthfeel? And
Yes.
yeah, this is what happens when you, I'm going to show you what happens when you stir the leaves on Chardonnay.
And you can tell how much of that's in Chinese food.
Yeah, well, in all food, in a plate of Italian food, pasta with tomato sauce and Parmesan cheese, there's more free glutamate than in a plate of Chinese food with MSG added. So we've got all this misunderstanding about glutamate. Human breast milk has 10 times more glutamate than cow's milk. So we're literally weaned from it. Now these are food grade nucleotides, 5' ribonucleotides. Hello? Oh, do you want to?
I was reading precisely about this on Jamie Good's Science of Wine this week. Now I have a better understanding. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can read the thing on why Jamie Good disagrees with me, but he's never read my work or attended one of these. Now what I'm going to do is add another natural component that is created when a tomato ripens, when you ferment fish to make Thai fish sauce, when Parmesan cheese is coming together, when you add the anchovies to the Parmesan cheese and the Caesar salad. And so this is now a combination of something that doesn't have umami taste, but synergizes the taste almost 10 times. So try it again.
Then spit.
Yep. That kind of a wow?
A little intense, yes.
Yeah, it's like a broth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're making soups and stocks, when we're letting meat age, when ripe tomatoes, asparagus, you love foods high in umami, and humans go to incredible lengths to get umami taste in their food. What that sets up, though, is a possibility that your wine's going to suck. So an awful lot of the foods that are responsible for bad wine and food pairings are actually high in umami. Red wine, and again, you can use a spit cup if you want, or anything you want to do. And you love asparagus. By the way, this is how we recommend you taste. Taste the wine, taste a bite of food, taste wine again, taste food again if you like. You love asparagus?
I don't, but I'll.
Oh, is it too bitter?
It's just not one of my favorite things. But
Oh, no, this is,
I like
she's
it.
doing this for science, for you guys. Okay? Take a sip of the wine and let me know what happens. And pay special attention to just sort of, is it more acidic and bitter and stuff, less acidic, same, no change?
Less acidic, much more neutralized after this. This is very neutralized to me, and those can taste very astringent tasting to me, and it tasted very, almost like a tomato or.
90, so would that be something that would be no problem to have if you liked it?
And I wouldn't imagine those going.
And we wouldn't do it because we've been told not to, and we've been told for all the wrong reasons, like asparagus is some sort of huge problem. It is to a very, very small minority of people. And then there's a simple workaround to that as well. This idea that asparagus will kill the wine, or you have it with Sauvignon Blanc, it'll actually make Sauvignon Blanc generally more aggressively, herbaceous and whatever, and more bitter. And we don't even know what happens anymore. And so we just got to stop it. I mean, this patent thing, if you're talking with somebody and they say, well, should I have the asparagus for having this nice Bordeaux, Cabernet, Greek red, South African, New Zealand, whatever, say, well, you know what? I'd suggest why don't we have you try a little bit, and then you can gauge in the future what to do. But just because it may make wine really bitter and horrible for you, stop doing it. But don't think that what you're doing is applicable to everybody in the world. That's crazy. That's not hospitality. You think everybody in France and Italy and Europe stopped drinking wine when asparagus came in season? I don't think so. They loved it. They celebrated it. Okay, now for the demo you can do at home, I've got mushrooms.
I'm going to film a little bit here.
Oh,
Let me get the.
but you got to come do this. So
Oh, I
you can,
gotta do it,
well, you can
okay.
do a selfie. I know.
I'll do a selfie. Okay.
Okay, we're going to do this as a selfie. I want you to take a bite. Here, I'll feed you. You know, come to my house. This is hospitality. This is a raw mushroom. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay, take a bite of raw mushroom. Here she goes. All right. It's a little earthy, but it's kind of tasteless. Would you agree?
Kind of tasteless.
Doesn't jump.
I'm actually surprised.
This is a cooked mushroom, the same exact mushrooms. But what we've done through heat, we've converted glutamic acid into glutamate, which is what? Umami taste, open wide. And isn't that much more delicious?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you experience with the MSG and the nucleotides. That's what happens when you bake a potato, when you age a steak, when you ripen a tomato, when you have asparagus. And it's important in fruits and having that unbelievable, ripe, amazing experience with really great ripe fruit, it's as important. So yes, it can be savory, but it's far beyond just savory. It's the most pervasive taste in food and probably the most important taste humans can distinguish. All right, now we're going to get into kind of the next level of all of this. Actually, we're not going to yet. All right. While we're talking here, you can film this.
Open this.
Halibut. Delicate white fish. Agreed?
Yes.
Riesling. Hang on. Delicate white wine. It's even a little sweet. I'm putting the Riesling into the pan. You can try this at home.
Generation Riesling will love this.
Exactly. I mean, if you sell Riesling, why would you not want to sell it with a steak? If you sell Cabernet, why would you not want somebody to take it home and have it with halibut or chicken? The only thing preventing that is our insanity of wine and food pairing, which has no reality. Okay, so I got the Riesling. Oops, where's my knife? My big knife. I'm putting lemon juice into the Riesling, and then I'm putting salt. All right. I don't think you can get a much more delicate preparation than this. I'm putting in the halibut, and I'm going to serve poached halibut in a Riesling and lemon sauce. That's what's for lunch.
Are you pooping?
Yes. All right. Let me look and see what kind of questions.
Honey, come here. Stand. It looks like you were going like this.
Let's see, Hope, did you have a question or can I mute you? I'll go ahead and mute you. Or Gloria. I'm sorry, Gloria, I guess. So somebody's asking, they took the WSET level 3 and they taught you umami enhanced. I actually wrote the principles and all of what the WSET is using for level 3. I thought it was level 4 and made a mistake, but it is level 3, okay? So I'm going to give you the solution of what to do so that umami is never a problem anymore. And I'm going to show you in France how it's, and in Italy, how it's actually the essentials of great cuisine in Europe. So we'll get to that. Okay.
Those other people.
All right. So we've got that going now. We've got this. We've got, would most people agree that a young Cabernet Sauvignon is the wrong wine to serve with a delicate halibut poached in Riesling? I think most of people, 2 points into the sink, I know. Chefs are really good at hitting garbage cans. This is our new house too. We've only been in here for a few months, and you're the first to go through this in our brand new house.
Oh, nice.
I know, we love it. I live in Bend, Oregon now. Let me make sure. Okay. So anybody that wants to be fed by me, if you're ever in Bend, Oregon, and I'm serious about this, my wife hates it when I do this, but come see me. And come tell Jamie Good to come see me or whatever, because it really pisses me off that people take my work out of context or only partially and really don't understand what it's all about and whatever. Okay. Chris Cook's going to be here this weekend. Are you serious about this? And because I am. All right. Oops. All right. I let my poaching liquid get a little out of control here.
Your videos are being retweeted all over the world right now.
Yay!
We've got one to Ukraine.
Excellent. I just got back from China, from Shanghai. I've done this presentation and work in over 27, 28, I think now, different countries around the world. So here's sort of we'll try to get through these fairly swiftly. How do you like your steak cooked?
Vegetarian.
Oh, you are vegetarian. Okay, so
But it's okay, I'll have a bite.
okay, but we can, and here's the other thing, who cares if you love red wine and you're a vegetarian, what the hell do you want with a recommendation of Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc when you want a frickin' red wine, you know? And so it's just all part of this insanity. Now, there are reactions, but we can understand, we can control the reactions, and we can do things about them. So one of the biggest pseudoscientific things, and this was interesting, somebody was showing me a chart from Wine Folly, and it said the fat and the oils smooth the red wine and help to eliminate the astringency. And then in the very next section, it said that with fish, the fats and the oils increase the bitterness and astringency. I mean, how do you figure this stuff out? I mean, literally on the same chart, right next to each other, the complete cancellation of one thought with the next. Okay, young lady, so come over here. I'm going to hurt you.
Can I ask a question too?
Oh, please, please, please.
Do you change the food around when you go to different countries? Is it the same presentation, or do you change what you have on the table?
Oh, I change what I have consistent with the culture and the cuisine, and also the audience.
And the spices?
So I actually, when I was in Shanghai, I was at a large wine exhibition, and I did 5 different workshops in 3 days. And so one was how to deal with this. And here's a very interesting thing. So, oh, why, you know, Chinese food does this, and this. How do you match it? You don't. That is the most ridiculous thing. You get a Chinese meal, you've got duck liver and chicken ankles and chicken feet and the seafood and broth and salted aged cod, not my cup of tea, but lots of umami. You've got the braised pork belly, you've got all this stuff, and it's all on the table at once. And you've got a lot of sweet dishes, all right? Did you know that's how they used to serve French cuisine? That actual French cuisine defined, look it up, and look up the difference between French cuisine and service a la Russe, A-L-A-R-U-S-S-E. It was Russian service, and still is today. If you serve a plate, that's not French, that's Russian. And we don't know that. And that's how did the French match wine and food when they brought out the vegetables, the pastries, the fish, the chicken, the beef all at once. And they did not match wine and food. When they brought out the Lafitte, this is in La Russe Gastronomique, I've got it on the slideshow to kind of finish things up. when they serve the great red wines, it clearly states if the guests prefer, serve them sweet wines, serve them white wines. And that was the culture. Chateau Yquem was never a dessert wine in France. It was served with oysters, with beef, and so on, if the guest preferred at a great meal. And so again, we've just totally screwed it up. Okay, so here you are, my dear. This is fat. All right, so you got to come do this again.
Should we do a selfie?
Yeah, we can do the selfie, and everybody watch your face. So the conventional wisdom is the fat smooths out the wine. So take a sip of your wine, then use the spoon, take a little bit of fat, and then try the wine again.
Okay. I'm trying to video both of us here.
Oh, here, I'll hold that.
Okay.
All right, now try a little of fat.
A little in the fat.
Now, when you do this also,
Like
try to replicate how humans eat and drink, not the swishing and all that, so just a little bit. Okay, now try the wine again. And the question is, more or less smooth? More or less bitter?
A little bit bitter.
Yeah, it makes wine more bitter. The fat on a steak makes wine more bitter. The fat in cheese makes wine more bitter. It's a lie to think that it's just this metaphor that we think it's replacing the lubricity from astringency. And so we won't do it, but you can do it with the butter. We could do it with the steak fat. You can do it with pork lard. You can do it. Now, olive oil has different pHs, different acidities, and different flavor contaminants. So it's less predictable exactly what will happen. And so it's kind of fun to play with different olive oils to find which ones smooth the wine out or make it more bitter and astringent. Okay? All right. So next, the first question is this a beautifully poached, delicate piece of fish? Would you say?
Yes, I would say.
Okay, nothing up my sleeve, this is it. All right, and it's delicate and just barely cooked. So, what I want you to do is take a sip of the wine, take a little bite of the fish. You know the drill by now. And supposedly, it's supposed to overpower the fish.
The fish is delicious.
Absolutely delicious, isn't it? It doesn't overpower it, you guys. We made that crap up. It's a metaphor, the big wine and the little fish.
The fish, they're almost two separate tastes. The fish is delicious, and this doesn't overpower it.
And the wine's delicious, right?
It is.
It's all BS. It is truly BS. And we're not going to have time to do it. I can cook the salmon. Salmon actually sucks with Cabernet unless you add the salt and the acidity. So here's the number one thing you need to do, and this is in the WSET material, and it's called Tim's Tequila Trick. All right. Let's see what kind of things we got. Yeah, poached in Riesling and lemon juice. And you can do it with flounder and sole and plaice and chicken breast and whatever you want. And it's just absolutely a complete flat-ass myth that this overpowering it or kills this and whatever. People who are genetically hypersensitive to bitterness may find it makes the wine a little bitter and metallic, but this wouldn't be your choice of wine anyways. And if you love Sauvignon Blanc or Riesling or Chardonnay or Chablis or whatever, it's going to be great with your fish if you avoid too much sweetness in the dish, because this is what happens with sweetness. All right, come back over here, my dear. A grape. Yummy, it's sweet, isn't it?
I like grapes.
Grapes. And so, the wine had blackberries or blueberries or currants or this and that. It's made from grapes, so there should be a natural affinity. Try the wine. It sucks.
It's not a good mix.
Using these metaphors of descriptive language for the wine, which is mostly made up anyways, and thinking that's the rationale to have the cherries with the duck, you're actually just setting it up. Sweet food makes wine suck. It just does. Wine that you would like in the first place becomes, now you might like your wine more, tell me if I'm wrong, the fruit's gone, it's bitter, and it's sour. Some people like that, and that's again, that could be the source for an argument. But for most people, 95% of people get a horrible reaction from that. You ever been to Senor Frogs in Cancun?
I have not.
Anybody been to Senor Frogs in Cancun? Because they got tequila, and they scream and they blow whistles, and they used to throw people out the window into the lagoon until a crocodile hit one. And this is a tequila trick. You're not biting it. You're just going to take a really small lick. Sip of wine, lick of lemon, and good catch. Just a little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
So
the bitter.
Try the wine again.
Very good with the wine.
Smooth as a baby's butt.
Very smooth.
So here's this is what I want to bring up just again to have you all look. This is Larousse Gastronomique. And it says clearly when you serve the Lafite, the Hermitage, or if the guest prefer white wines, sweet wines, whatever the guest prefers. It's not wine and food pairing. Port, Marsala, sherry used to all be served before the meal, not after the meal. And Chateau Yquem and Barsac were equally served with fish and hors d'oeuvres and beef. Most people don't know Montrachet was, and most white Rhone wines were actually very, very sweet. So the basis for the greatest Chardonnay in the world is actually when the wine was sweet in the greatest of vintages. That's right in here, okay? All right, so where does fat fit and umami, all right? So that's what we're getting to. Number one, fat simply just doesn't have the role that we ascribe to it. So fat itself is fairly net neutral, but don't think that it softens or is responsible for softening the wine. It actually has the opposite effect. When you've got sweetness and umami in the food, it makes your wine stronger, meaning drier, less sweet, less fruity, more acidic, more bitter, and tannic. Would you agree with that assessment? And then the salt and the sourness, which come in many, many different forms in different cuisines. What's really cool, in a Chinese meal, they actually give you a little dual compartment thing, and in one side it's soy sauce and the other's vinegar. So even if you get something really umami rich, you can dip it into your salt and acidity. Oh, what book is that? I'll get, let me go back to that. This is Larousse Gastronomique, and I'll show you a picture of it in just a second, okay? When you get all of these elements in balance, wine just becomes good. And it's, yes, thank you, Louis. That's just about it. Instead of Larousse Gastronomia, it's Gastronomique, so there's a C at the end. All right? All right. So the long and the short of it, and this is the book. Now, there's two editions. You want the 1961 Crown edition, and you can get it on the cheap on Amazon, and go through it. And the other thing to note, and this is all part of our ongoing research and so on, these charts that are in here with wine and food, those were added in 1961. So you want the Crown edition of the 1938 copy of this book that was translated in 1961 if you're English. If you're French, you can read it in the original French, and it won't have those charts. It wasn't until the 1960s that even remotely started to quote-unquote match or pair the wine and food. It's just a figment of our imagination. It's not the history. It's not the tradition. Not in Italy, not in France. We love the poetic and the passionate. Oh, if it grows together, it goes together. And just BS. I was talking to somebody today, and they were talking the challenge of fusion cuisine. But did you know if you have chilies in Thai food or Sichuan or Hunan cuisine, that's fusion cuisine. That was brought from the Americas. It's not part of their cuisine. Tomatoes in Italy were not adopted till the middle of the 19th century. They came over hundreds of years before, but they were thought to be poisonous. And if you ate tomatoes off of pewter plates, which that's what most of the plates were, you would get lead poisoning. So they actually had evidence that these tomatoes were horrible and dangerous, and they come from the nightshade family. There's so much fascinating stuff to learn about wine and food, but the way we're going about it is absolutely ridiculous, all right? So again, we're trying to cover an awful lot of things, but the whole steak and red wine, let's see, take a little sip of your wine there. I'm gonna subject my vegetarian to a beautiful piece of rare steak. She'll hate me forever.
I won't hate you forever.
Okay. All right, so take a little sip of your wine again for your benchmark. All right. A beautiful piece of rare steak. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Anybody know bistecca alla fiorentina? Anybody know sauce bordelaise? Anybody know champignons alla bordelaise? Try your wine. They salt the hell out of the steak and
May I put this in my spit cup?
yeah, you actually may. Yes, absolutely, please. Serious, I'm serious about that, yeah. So who cares? And you love red wine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why all of a sudden she's a vegetarian, would we not recommend asparagus or salads and this and that? Now, when you're making salad, Caesar salad's actually uniformly very wine friendly. The same reaction that goes on with the Cabernet and the salt and the acidity. Yeah, that'll be refreshing.
It's a little tacky. Oh, this is wonderful.
Isn't that wonderful? I'm going to make it really sweet for you.
Okay.
Try the lemon and the salt. The lemon and the salt will take wherever the wine is and make it more luxurious, softer, fruitier. You might not want that, but that's why oysters are served with vinegar and mignonette in France and with lemon juice and whatever. It's not the oyster in the Chablis or the Muscadet.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and it's luxurious, isn't it? So when you have a really sweet wine with salty, acidic Roquefort, which also has a lot of umami, but salt and acidity are necessary if you want your food to be delicious with wine.
So what type of meal would encompass that taste?
If you go to Tuscany, you get their famous bistecca alla fiorentina. It'll be a big-ass porterhouse steak, heavily salted, served with lemon.
Okay.
If you go and you get something a la bordelaise, they'll make a red wine reduction. Actually, an acidic white wine reduction would make a red wine better with the dish in general, or smoother, not better necessarily. But at the very last minute, you add lemon juice and salt and adjust it, and that's what makes your wine smooth. Or Béarnaise sauce, or on and on and on. Tomatoes and wine, really random how people respond to it. Put a few drops of lemon juice. And if you go to Italy, they've got lemons on the table at all times. In France, they'll have the vinegar. And depending on where you are, they might have verjus, they might have acidic mustard, and or lemons. So again, it's just a matter of what's the source. Olives and wine, salt and acidity. The curing actually creates the umami, making it yummy, but there's enough salt and acidity in an olive to make your wine smooth as a baby's butt. If you're running a tasting room and you do these little demos, you can just do the grape, salt, and lemon juice. People go, wow, they will remember the experience. If you're a sommelier and you go up to a table and you notice somebody not drinking the red wine and they're not in the wine conversation, ask them if they like sweet wine. and tell them it's a sign of having more taste buds and you've got some delicious wines by the glass or sweet wines that you'd love to introduce them to. When Robert Mondavi met with Baron de Rothschild to create Opus One, he went to a private dinner at Mouton Rothschild, and Philippe came out and he's serving Chateau Yquem, and it's coming out glubbing out of the bottle. And Robert says, well, the wine's frozen. He says, yes, I know. And it was literally like a Slurpee or an icy, and it's glub, 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 and it's like frozen. And Bob said, and this is a true story, it can be corroborated. Robert Mondavi said, why in the world would you ruin such a great wine? And the Baron Philippe de Rothschild said, because I like it. That should be good enough for anybody to be able to quit bitching at consumers, quit judging people by the wines they like. If you find an argument over wine or a wine and food, see if you can find the source. It might be physiological. It might be neurological. You don't know until you have that conversation. But when this wine study group that I started posting on, I think a lot of you are from this, you guys are just arguing in the air and about nothing. You're not forwarding your learning by just asserting your personal opinions. There's this whole new way to do this. By the way, this is how I passed the Master of Wine exam in 1990. Joel Butler and I were the first two Americans to do it in history. We think totally differently, and this is the way I think, the critical thinking, the looking behind in the business and the sciences behind something, okay? So let me see here. Let's see, I have something from Chris Cook, but I'm not seeing it. Okay. All right. So we got lots more, but we are out of time. Play with your wine and food. Share experiences. Do not think in any way, shape, or form, just because you like it, anybody else should, or vice versa. And you'll find a lot of agreement when you're doing things. Oh, yeah, this is so delicious, but it might be for totally different reasons. So anyways, this is 30 years of research and work, actually 52 years of my career. I hope you enjoyed it. And then let me take any other questions that anybody might have, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. Yeah, Michael, try that. I want everybody to try the tequila trick with dinner guests. I want anybody who knows somebody who just loves sweet wines and they won't stop drinking it. I want you to acknowledge them as wow, I just learned that you have the most taste buds. Anybody you see dumping the salt on their food, go, wow, oh, you must be really sensitive to bitterness and have to cut tags out of your clothes and all these behaviors, because that's the truth. They're living in this different sensory world. And if it's you, when people are bitching and complaining that you reach for the salt shaker, tell them to shut up. And if it's a sommelier or if it's a chef, tell them to shut up more and get re-educated on sensations and behavior and what all these things do. Okay, I've got a book. My book is called Why You Like the Wines You Like. It's on Amazon. Here's a picture of it. Thank you. I'm not doing this to sell the book, but it chronicles all of the sciences and the neurology and the background of this. And that's the hard part of it. I have to rely literally on over 100 mentors around the world, seriously, that I have that for the last 30 years have been helping me to understand. People who are psychogustatory specialists that just look at the psychology and the neurology of sensations and how all that works. And so each one of these things that I've showed you actually has been researched, validated, and again, we'll change any of our information as soon as we learn anything new. It's not, you know, we're stuck here and that's where it's going to stay. It's applicable to every culture, every wine lover, every type of wine. And at the end of the day, it has people be more trusting of all of us as experts and professionals. It has people more willing to go on adventures and try new and different things. And at the deepest level, it literally can have profound impact on children and who they are growing up and understanding behaviors and so on and so forth. Okay? All right, very good. I think that's about it. Other than taste, what do you think about matching flavors? Well, I don't know what the question is. Matching flavors is just BS. There's cause and effect reactions between primary tastes. It's called sensory adaptation. Matching flavors is, you know, what did I match in flavor with this delicious, perfect piece of halibut poached in Riesling with lemon juice with Cabernet? And it's delicious. You can't understand how delicious it is until you replicate it. So matching flavors is all in our head. In my book, there's a whole section on kind of how the expert mind makes up stuff and how artificial we become. Okay? So quit the matching flavors. Match the wine to the person and quit this stuff, oh, the chair. Because the matching of flavors more often than not actually leads to very unpleasant things, like sweet things in a dish that we then think is matched to the wine because it's got metaphorically that same flavor. Okay? All righty. Oh, this is not a dry Riesling. So here's the other thing. This is a sweet Riesling, but again, the salt and the lemon juice neutralized that. It neutralized the umami. It created a really delicious flavor. And this is actually a sweet Riesling, not a dry. And most people who really love, most consumers who love Riesling like sweet Rieslings. And they were always the most prized wines in Germany, served with wild boar or beef or whatever, depending upon the occasion. Sweet Rieslings were served, not dry. So this idea that dry Riesling's better with food, no, it's not. Is it good for the person? Is that what they like? And then what kind of food are they going to enjoy the most? I mean, patently, I'm asking us to stop matching wine and food. Now, there's a way to do it. And again, we don't have the time to get into it all. So maybe we can do a follow-up, and if you're interested, and deepen into it. Okay? Thank you all very much. I appreciate it, and it's been great having you, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'll send out some notices when we get this done, and we got a whole Twitter thing going on. Look for Jessica Lewis, JESSYCALEWIS.
.com. Yeah, Jessica Lewis, sorry.
Yeah, and also .com, and she does a wonderful Wine Market Monday program on Twitter, and I participated, and that's actually how we met when she reached out for me for that. So come on over and say goodbye.
Bye. It's nice to meet you all.
Thank you,
and
guys.
Follow me on Twitter. I'd love to connect with you. Jessica Lewis.
All righty. Thank you. And Instagram. Find us.
I'm posting all the videos and the photos on Instagram and Twitter.
Great.
Are we all?